In 1999, California voted to create the CAHSEE, also known as the California High School Exit Exam, in order to have a state exam linked to the new state standards. The first students to take the test were from schools who volunteered or received funding, and those were the students of the class of 2004. Initially, the CAHSEE was intended as a graduation requirement for the class of 2004. The State Board of Education later revised the deadline, and it was officially imposed first on the class of 2006 when it became mandatory. So what does the implementation of CAHSEE mean? It means public school students must pass the exam before they can receive a high school diploma. It also means that high school teachers now have a very important standardized test that they must teach to. The students are given the California High School Exit Exam as a sophomore so that they have 3 chances to pass it. They may retake just the section they did not pass. The CAHSEE is divided into 2 main sections: English Language Arts and Mathematics. The English section includes about 80 multiple choice questions and requires students to write 1 or 2 multi-paragraph essays. This section requires a 60% to pass. The Mathematics section consists of about 90 multiple choice questions. This section requires a 55% to pass. Students with documented disabilities are allowed reasonable accommodations to keep the disability from being an unfair impediment. These accommodations do not interfere with what the exam is designed to measure. An example would be a visually impaired student receiving the exam in Braille. Anything interfering with what the test was originally intended to measure is considered a modification. An example of this would be reading the test out loud to a student while the exam is measuring reading. Modified CAHSEE exams are nullified for graduation purposes. Beginning in 2010, eligible disabled students may graduate without passing the CAHSEE. Students must have an individualized education plan that indicates that the student has met all other graduation requirements without passing the California High School Exit Exam. These students are still required to take the test to fulfill the requirements of No Child Left Behind. But is the CAHSEE really fair? The test highlights educational disparities by race, disability, income, and whether English is spoken in the home. In 2006, an Alameda County Superior Court judge struck down the CAHSEE, ruling that students from disadvantaged schools with low income or high immigration had not been properly prepared for the exam. And the Supreme Court reinstated the exam and upheld the CAHSEE. Alternative assessments, such as evaluation of a student's work portfolio, have been proposed and rejected. These alternative assessments would consider a greater range of the student's work and learning, but they are non-standardized, meaning they could be biased, they're more expensive to grade, and there are concerns of cheating since not all work is done in a supervised setting. The number of students passing the test on their first try has risen slightly every year since 2004. In 2010, 81% of 10th graders passed both sections on their first try. More than 3/4 of students pass the test more than 2 years before they finish high school, and 9 out of 10 will pass the test by the time they finish high school. Many supporters of the test claim that since 1 in 10 students are failing the test despite having passing school grades, then receiving passing grades in California schools does not indicate that the student has learned the material.